Yeah, I think this is the first time we've reviewed a sequel to a movie that we've reviewed previously.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of fitting that this is our 2-year anniversary for the show.
Cheers, guys.
So, cheers.
It's awesome having you guys.
Yep.
I love reading the comments, feedback. It's good shit.
Yeah.
Getting into arguments.
Oh, that's the best part.
Yeah.
When people try to light us up in the comments and they're shocked when we respond.
Yeah.
So yeah, starting off, I mean, we had Halloween Ends was our first. That sucked. Then we had Exorcist Believer for our first anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
That was fucking hard. And now we've got another horror movie, which is better.
Right.
But we've still got some things to say.
We have some issues.
The suspense is terrible.
We did enjoy the first one, though, a fair bit.
We did, actually, yeah, and that's probably going to come up a little later in the review, or at least some parts of the first one, but we both did enjoy the first one quite a bit, especially the third act.
Exactly. We're going to refer to it most likely because there are some rules kind of set up in the first one that are either bent or just like gone off the rails in this one.
Yeah, we'll explore that a little bit, because I got some opinions about that.
Is that a fact? That's a fact.
I guess the first one ends in a way that perfectly sets up the possibility for a sequel.
Yeah.
But I was not really clamoring for a sequel.
Nope.
To this. Like, the first one hit hard in a way that I was like very satisfied, and going into this one, I was like, I hope it's not just a rehash of the first film, the exact same beats with a different character.
Yeah.
And it kind of is. It's that, but just elevated a little bit in every way.
It's got a slightly bigger scale. I thought the scale was actually going to be bigger, the whole pop singer aspect of it.
Yeah.
It still is bigger, but like when you watch it, it still does kind of feel like a smaller budget horror movie. You know what I mean? I thought they were going to kind of go bonkers with the budget, which it doesn't do. That's not a criticism. It's just sort of a...
No. It definitely maintained a lot of like the feeling and style and look, like the filmmaking techniques of the first one. Like Parker Finn carried that like straight through to this one, and he didn't miss a step in that regard.
You have the tendency when you make a sequel to, sequelitis. You just kind of make everything bigger, and that doesn't necessarily mean better.
Right.
And this did not do that. I think that he actually did do a good job at like kind of reining himself in when it comes to the story aspect and how big it can go. My biggest fear about doing a sequel, when you start like a horror franchise, you have the tendency to like over-explain things, like, oh, what's the demon? And like give the demon a backstory and all that shit. Just totally ruin the mystique about
when
the
they
character.
get to Smile 3 or 4, we might get that bullshit.
Not gonna happen, pal.
Luckily, this one didn't do that. It didn't go that route, so I appreciated that.
It almost did the opposite in a way, like, because the first film, you really like dive in with this character, and then she meets up with her ex-boyfriend, and they really uncover like the mystery of like the whole entity.
Yeah,
and,
there's like a procedural aspect of the film.
Yeah, and that was kind of great, because you're learning just enough to know what you need to know for the story to unfold.
Yeah.
And then how they can attempt to beat it, and ultimately how they don't. This one, she never really gets any sense of like what's happening to her until very close to the end.
It's like 75 minutes through until that happens.
And then when it does come, it's like it's all just kind of dumped in one scene, like a little exposition with one character who like you haven't seen up until this point.
And then it's kind of abandoned after that.
It almost felt like a regression in terms of like learning more about this world.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, like, I don't need to know like the mechanics of every little beat about how this demon works.
Yeah.
But I do want to know like a few different details. There were a couple like little additional details they dropped in there that I feel like were glossed over in the first one, but like not really enough to move anything forward.
This one decided to go the opposite way. It just didn't do it at all.
Right. Now, okay, this is something that we didn't talk about in the first Smile review, because I didn't think it was warranted, but in this one I think it is. With movies like this where you've got like this pattern that happens where it's been jumping from person to person to person to and the movie chooses to follow this particular person. Like in the first film, you don't really need to establish that, because they're like, this is the first person we're following. So now that we're doing a sequel, I don't want to see the exact same story where person goes up against entity and the same thing happens to them. Now, I'm not saying like I need a happy ending.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like I want to see some variety in how they approach fighting this thing.
Yeah.
Whether they win or lose.
That's what makes the sequel different from the one that comes before it.
Right.
Is the stakes that are involved in this one now, the new characters, and how the new character deals with it.
Yeah. If we're going to follow a particular character, I want to see what makes this character unique in dealing with this situation. And I feel like I did like Naomi Scott in this better than the character in the first one, but I wasn't on board with her at all because she spends the whole movie just hallucinating.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And like, which we'll get to, but
Yeah.
why are we following her?
Exactly.
You know, like, it seemed like we're following somebody who's even less equipped to deal with this than the character in the first film.
Yeah.
So to me, that's kind of like, well, now we're wasting our time a little.
I haven't got time for this Mickey Mouse bullshit!
The character in the first film was a therapist, so that made her character kind of equipped to,
more equipped to
ask the questions.
Exactly. And then she reaches out to her ex-boyfriend, and he comes on board, and now we've got the cop involved, so now they're digging into this mystery.
Right.
That was more interesting to me.
That's when the first one became interesting, is when she was actually kind of trying to figure out what the fuck this thing was.
Right, and as she's doing that, this thing is fucking with her more and more.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that the story with Naomi Scott would have been best served as the third movie.
As the button on a trilogy or something, yeah.
And the reason for that is because our boy Kyle
of how this movie begins.
Yeah, he kind of they kind of did him dirty a bit.
Man, okay, this movie starts 6 days after the first one ends.
The movie literally starts with text on the screen saying 6 days later.
Yeah, 6 days later. So we never get to see what he does with his time where he's been cursed with this demon. That's what this movie should have been.
Right. And that's not to say that anytime the previous film ends, like that's necessarily where the sequel has to go.
Of course.
You know? But I feel like that character was interesting enough and competent enough that you'd want to see, okay, well, this guy's a cop. He's a detective. Right. So what's this?
And he's got knowledge of like how this thing works.
Yeah,
so now he's got a leg up.
So what is a character that has a leg up? How does that person deal with this demon? How does the demon deal with him?
Right. In the beginning of this movie, he targets like bad people, like drug dealers. Like I'm gonna go in there. I'm gonna like kill this bad guy in front of his brother, and then the demon's gonna pass to him.
Yeah.
And the opening sequence, it's probably one of the best scenes in the whole film.
It is. It's all done in like one take, or at least disguised to look like one take.
Yeah.
It was very creative, and as you're watching it, you're intrigued.
Yeah.
And you want to know like what brought him there.
Right. Exactly. How did he get here? And now he already knows what his plan is. Like because you learn in the first film, they set up a character who actually beat the demon. Mm-hmm. So they know how to beat it. It's a fucked up thing you have to do to beat it.
Yeah, and it's hard to execute.
So he goes there and he tries to execute it, but he fucks it up. Instead of killing the one dude in front of his brother and letting it pass to him, he ends up killing both of them. And he's like, oh shit, I fucked up. Like, but there was another witness there.
Right.
There was the character that ends up passing it to Naomi Scott. So it ended up going to him. Like, we were talking about this after we saw the movie. Like, we were a little confused as to what the hell was going on in this opening scene because he runs out of the house and just runs into traffic.
Yeah, because normally when your time is up, the demon will possess you, and then he kills you in front of a person.
You kill, exactly.
You know, but this didn't happen. He just ends up getting out of there, running across the street, and just because he didn't look both ways, he got fucking hit by a car.
Yeah, he got hit by a Suburban going by.
They just wipe him out, like out of the film right away. Like 7 minutes into the movie, he's gone.
Yeah,
he's done.
So we're wondering, like, well, how the hell did the curse get past then?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until after the film where we kind of talked it through. We were like, wait a minute. Okay, so he must have passed it to the kid in there.
Because
Lewis,
he saw him murder.
Because Lewis must have been hiding and saw the murder happen.
Yeah.
So now, at this point, he's beat the curse. Like, now it's passed on to this guy. So now all he's got to do is get the hell out of there, get back to his car. He runs outside, and, like, I guess his peripheral vision failed.
Yeah.
Because he just runs into the street, and he becomes a skid mark. And it's like, what the fuck?
Pardon me, but that's bullshit.
There's no reason for him to be that stupid at that point, or he's not possessed at that point.
Like he passed it off to the wrong person, but
he's free.
He beat it.
Yeah.
He got out,
Yeah.
and then it's like he just becomes a fucking skid mark, and it's like, damn, they did him dirty.
They did. Well, and if you make a first film and it's super low budget, usually you're working with a bunch of actors who are virtual nobodies. You know what I mean? So it kind of makes sense that if you're doing a sequel and you have a little bit more money, you're now going to hire more people that have faces. You know that can sell a movie,
Yeah.
you know? Certain circumstances, I can understand why they wouldn't have the same actors from the previous film come back. But Kyle Gallner, he's been doing a lot of work lately. Like, he's kind of rising to prominence, you know what I mean? And he's been in the industry for, over a decade now. But just recently, like, he made a film called Dinner in America a few years back, which is, seen as like a pretty good like acting vehicle for him. And just recently, he was in that film, that indie film that's been kind of taken off, Strange Darling, which I saw recently. And he's very good in it. Like, he's a good actor, and like I think he's at that level right now where he's sort of on the cusp. It would have made sense if they did build a movie around him.
It could have been a good vehicle for him.
It could have been a good vehicle for him, and it just makes sense where he's in his career, where they can actually do that now.
Right.
It's not like his character was the most interesting in the first one, but still, he seemed like a competent guy. In this instance, it actually would have been beneficial if the second one just took place right after the first one ended.
Yeah. That would have been great. And, okay, the marketing for this film, they fucking show him die in the goddamn trailer.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're expecting you to forget about him in the first one, and they just wanted to show a death in the trailer.
And that was a big thing, like, for me with this one, where it was like the marketing for the first film was very clever, it was very subtle, and it pulled you in, it intrigued you. This, like, I remember, like, the teaser trailer didn't really give away that much, but the full trailer gave away a ton of shit. Like, the scares in the first entire half of this film are in the trailer.
Everything. Yeah, every single moment is in the trailer.
Yeah, and they're mostly like jump scares or whatever, but like for me with this series, I prefer like the really just creepy, static moments when somebody's just smiling and you're just like, you're just waiting for something to happen.
Which is what the first one did really well.
The first one did that really well. Now there's good jump scares in both of them.
Oh yeah.
But I prefer those like really just tense, creepy moments.
Yeah.
After he gets just wiped out,
we're introduced to the main character of this film.
Yes, and of course, she's got no shortage of trauma in her past. You learn about how she got into a car accident, her boyfriend died.
Right, the whole thing was kind of her fault. She's kind of a fuck up, a druggy fuck up.
She's druggy, so she had to go into rehab. She got sober, she got clean, and now she's getting ready to go back on tour as this Grammy-winning artist.
Yeah.
So that's where we come in with her. But she's dealing with a lot of pain still from the accident, so that's when she goes to see the guy who witnessed the death in the opening of the film, Lewis.
Apparently they went to high school together.
Yeah, she knows him, whatever. So she goes there, and of course
she goes there to buy some Vicodin because since the accident, her back is all fucked up.
Yeah, she shows up, he kills himself, and then it passes to her.
Yeah.
From this point now, the movie kind of drags for a while.
Right.
But it's still entertaining. It's just like she's not really figuring anything out.
She's not proactive.
She's not proactive. She's just experiencing these hallucinations. And then she kind of, not shrugs them off, she's freaked out by them, but she kind of just goes on with her life.
Right.
So you're waiting, like, when is she going to start to kind of investigate this a little bit?
Well, we're waiting.
But it's also a little annoying because there is that invite for her to start doing that because she gets a mysterious text.
She gets the text.
Once she answers that guy, that's what starts the investigation.
Right, but that happens so much later in the film.
Yeah, she never takes that up. Between then and 75 minutes into the film, you're just watching her kind of just experience these weird hallucinations.
And get ready for her tour while she's experiencing these hallucinations. And they're like a mix of like the jump scares, but some of them are like genuinely creepy. Like the ones that take place in her apartment when she thinks like someone else is in there, like when there's like the crazy fan with the fucked up skin who
I'm so glad they didn't make that guy a white guy.
Oh yeah, the Asian dude.
He was an Asian guy
named Alfredo. Yeah, like she goes to check the door and then she sees like the shirt she signed is there, and then she sees the clothes leading down the hallway.
There's this shot like on the ground kind of dollying over all of his clothes, and he gets to his underwear, there's a fucking skid mark on it.
Huge skid mark in his
disgusting.
Underwear. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
And it's a weird little like funny moment, but then the light goes off in the hallway and she looks up and he's naked standing at the end of the hallway smiling at her.
Yeah.
That was creepy.
And I can imagine that probably really freaks
Especially
out
for
women.
Like a woman,
Yeah.
Very creepy. And it's like those are the moments that really shine in this, in this
film. They're very effective and very well done.
Yeah. And like later on when she's like frantic, she's going through her apartment again and she's turning all the lights on and she turns the light on in her closet and her entire dance troupe is there, just like in these weird dance poses smiling at her. That scene got me. It was creepy, yeah. It was so creepy, and it's like it's not a jump scare. It's It's just them looking at her, and she starts backing up, and as she backs up, they like move towards her.
Yeah.
Really effective.
Well, that being said, though, there are a lot of jump scares in the film.
There are.
And a lot of them are very, it's the right way to do a jump scare.
Yeah, they hit you. It just felt like there's more jump scares in this one than in the first one.
Yeah, the big one in the first one was when her sister comes outside at the car window. And her head like falls down.
Oh, yeah.
That was like the big jump scare in that one.
There was some carryover in types of scares from the first one into this one because they worked so well in that one. So why not do them again in this one?
Absolutely, yeah.
And the sound design and music and filmmaking is all very tight, so it works.
Yeah, this has one of the best Atmos mixes I've heard all year. Like
Yeah.
they did a real, like not even just the sound effects, like the score, like everything. They used all the high channels. It was really, because we saw it in the Dolby theater, so we had like the Atmos experience.
Yeah,
and
that was great.
It sounded phenomenal.
Yeah, so she's kind of just like going through the motions, and then you get all the side characters. Like her mom is her manager. She's got her assistant, the black guy.
Yeah, super gay guy.
Yeah, the very gay guy.
Yeah.
And they got the record label guy, Darius, I think his name was. Like he's great.
When they introduced Darius, it's like one of my favorite parts of the film. It's so subtle. It just happens real quick.
He comes in and hugs the mom.
He comes in, gives the mom a hug, and like he's like, "What's up, Naomi?" or whatever. And then the gay guy's like, "Hi," like tries to go up to him,
And
and
he's like, "Yeah, I don't have to."
he just walks. He doesn't want to touch him.
Don't touch me!
He just walks by.
And you're like,
I think no
okay.
one was like, okay, he's gonna like end up being gay or something.
Or like they're gonna do something horrible to this guy.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Nothing happens to him.
He just didn't like that fucking guy for some reason, and
Right?
it was fucking great.
There was no reason for it. It was very funny.
Just a little detail in there, you know.
They introduce like her friend who she had a falling out with, and then her friend comes and stays with her, and they do stuff similar to like in the first one where a person comes to see her and they're talking to her, and then they start smiling, and then she wakes up and it's like, oh shit, like it was a hallucination, right?
Yeah.
And as an audience member, yes, that's a hallucination. The first film did that really well. This film,
Jesus,
it went way too far with bending reality to a point where once you get to the third act, shit starts happening and you're like, I'm not even with this anymore.
So aside from them doing Kyle Gallner dirty, this is the biggest issue with the movie, is the way they play with the hallucinations.
Yeah.
It's extremely annoying because in the first one, there's not one moment where you're like, okay, I don't know what's real and what's not real anymore. It does a good job at
even if like something is presented as real and then you find out that it's a hallucination, you can backtrack in your mind to the point where the hallucination started.
Yeah,
right.
So it felt like there were established rules at how the demon uses hallucinations for people.
Yeah.
This one, there's like
there's like a 30-minute chunk of this film that just ends up being a hallucination.
Yes,
and you're like, how far back do we have to go to get to reality?
When you find that out, you're just like, well, fuck this.
Fuck this.
That sucked. Like, I was totally with the movie.
Yeah.
Even absent the procedural element, I was still with it. It was annoying. It's like, why isn't she doing anything? But I was still going with it. But then at one point in the film, something happens. When it does, you're just like, okay, there's no going back from this.
Kind of like it's around the beginning of the third act.
Yeah, exactly. And then it keeps going on from there.
And then there's hallucinations inside of
That's
hallucinations.
what I mean. Like, they just go overboard with it.
They red herring the shit out of it. And it's like, oh, yeah, they're just being clever. And it's like, yeah, but there's going too far with it.
Yeah, because if as the audience, if you can't keep up with things, it's going to annoy you.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, I can't keep up with it because I'm not paying attention. No, they're just throwing too much shit at you, and they're not being fair with how the rules work.
Right.
They're throwing these hallucinations at you just to like be weird and just to be creepy.
You lose interest at a point. Like what you said. Like there's a moment. The moment comes when like she's in her apartment and the whole dance troupe is there. And she's trying to get out of there, and they're slowly moving towards her, and they grab her, and there's like this weird moment where you see like one of them put their arm like down her mouth. That's kind of the shift in the movie, because then it cuts to black or whatever. She wakes up and she's in like a rehab clinic.
Exactly. She's hooked up to an IV.
Yeah, that's the moment in the film where everything up until literally the end of the film stops being real.
Exactly.
And that's a big chunk.
Huge chunk.
You're talking like 30 minutes.
And so when that bit is ended, you feel cheated.
Yeah, exactly. So like she wakes up in bed and her mom's there, and she's like, nope, checked you in, your tour is starting soon, you got to get better. And she's got that good little moment with her mom where her mom finally like snaps on her, like, you little ungrateful bitch, like I gave up everything for you. And like they have that moment, and she freaks out at her mom, and then her mom switches into the demon, and she like breaks a mirror, and she proceeds to like kill herself.
Yeah.
And she's freaking out in bed, like she rips the IV out, she runs to the door, and then she realizes she's holding...
got the shard of glass in her hand.
Right, so okay, like how much are we fucking now with reality? Like was she she possessed and just killed her own mom?
Right.
And she goes over there and she's like hitting herself like, this isn't real. But it's seeming like it's real, right?
Yeah.
It's real, right? So she's like, well, I got to get out of here. So at this moment now, she's completely fucked. So like, you're not really with the situation anymore because there's no way for her to get out of this anymore.
No, it's over for her essentially.
If she dies, she's fucked from the demon. And if she survives this somehow, she killed her mom.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
she's done. She's going to jail. So like kind of like the dude in the first one.
Yeah.
That's the only path forward now. So you're like, well, who cares anymore?
Exactly.
She gets a gun from a security guard. She escapes from the place, and like her friend shows up and is like, "Oh, like where are we going? I'll take you there." And she's like, "I got to get to Staten Island because the guy who was texting her." She finally meets him, and she finds out like, "Oh, he's the brother of a victim from like 8 possessions ago." It's like kind of like a little exposition scene, like where he explains to her what this thing is, and he's like, "I think I can help you. Like, if I stop your heart, you'll be dead, and the demon will like
He's
leave."
a nurse.
He's a nurse, right?
So yeah, he feels like he can flatline her.
Yeah.
Use the flatline
Bring her back.
technique.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of liked that as an interesting alternative to murdering someone.
Yeah, well, that was an interesting idea. The only thing annoying about that whole setup was where was his character in the first one? That kind of bothered me. It's like, well, why don't you set up characters from the past and like have them reoccur in the series?
It was very convenient for him to show up.
Yeah, exactly.
And then quickly explain to her what was happening.
Yeah.
And then like, here's the plan.
Right.
Right. She goes to where he's got this like little medical facility set up, which is in like
an abandoned
pizza hut in the freezer.
Yeah.
So when they go into the building and he's like, "Oh, sorry, I forgot to pay the power bill," or whatever. You're like, okay, here's our creepy, isolated location that is reminiscent of the third act.
So the third act of the first one was
film.
extremely effective. That
It was
whole
so
sequence
effective.
where she goes to her old house.
Yeah.
That's some scary shit.
That scene stuck with us.
It did.
For a little bit.
Yeah, and every time, like I've watched the movie a couple times since.
Yeah.
And whenever it comes up to that part, I'm kind of like, ugh,
Yeah,
fuck. Like
yeah.
when you have a nightmare, that's what they're like.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so you feel like this film's version of that's going to take place.
That's kind of where it's going.
Yeah.
So you're just like, oh, but this is interesting though. Like she's with this guy now. Like I want to see how this is going to play out. And the demon appears as herself from the car accident.
Yeah.
The demon starts fucking with her in the way that the demon fucks with Sosie Bacon in the original as her mom. And she like fights against the demon, gets the thing, jams it in her neck, and she thinks like she did it, and she starts to lose consciousness, but then she snaps right back out of it, and the demon's like, "Nope, none of it's real, sorry."
Fool you!
The needle disappears, and then all of a sudden, she's not even in the Pizza Hut anymore.
Right. She's now on stage.
She's now in the one spot where we knew exactly how this movie was going to end.
Yeah,
from
before
the
going
first
into
trailer.
this, we were like, yeah, she's gonna. The end of the film is gonna be her killing herself in front of the world, basically.
Right. Yeah. I was hoping that based on what was happening, that wasn't going to be the case, but
yeah, no. So for me, I didn't mind if that was the ending. That's a little like too on the nose. But if it goes that way, okay. It's just a matter of how they get there.
Yeah, it's how they get there.
Yeah.
So
it seemed like it was going away from that because again, like, how are you going to get to that ending? Because like you're totally
because
deviating.
they're pulling all these little smaller hallucinations inside the bigger one.
Yeah.
Where like when she's driving with her friend, and then her friend calls her, kind of like the psychiatrist calls her in the first one, and she's with the person, and then the girl's driving like smiling at her, and she's like, "No, I'm in control," and then all of a sudden she's driving again.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so she's kind of operating through reality, but still dealing with these minor hallucinations. But once she appears on stage and the pod opens up and she comes out and she's like, "How the fuck did I get here?" And it's like, yeah, how the fuck did you get there?
Like,
because like, how much time has gone by at this point?
So does the demon like still go to your dance rehearsals and like dance for
Has
you?
the demon been inside of you on cruise control for like 2 days?
Yeah, exactly. It just raises all these questions at this point. Now you're like, what? Whoa.
Like how much time?
5 different timelines now are hallucinations. What the fuck? The end just becomes very annoying. It was almost like I got flashbacks to watching Tenet, where Tenet you're just like, oh my god, fuck this, and then you just give up. And that's how this movie felt.
She goes on stage, the demon like emerges kind of like how it did at the end of the first one, but way less scary.
Oh yeah.
It was still weird and creepy, but like way less effective.
No, that end scene in the first one is so good when you finally see it and all that. You could have done something cool where it's like in these like, you know, in the bright lights and like done all this stuff, but you see it real quick, and it just again was not as effective as that third act in the first one.
It goes in her, she kills herself with her microphone, and now this is where it's kind of weird because like you said, it felt like this should have been the end of the third film in like a complete trilogy, because she kills herself now in front of thousands of people, like tens of thousands of people. So
this would have been a good ending for a trilogy, you know?
Is this supposed to be like now the curse is passed to 50,000 people, or
that's the implication that I get?
Because that's like this demon has been operating as like it passes from one person to the next person and then to the next person. Like it doesn't seem like it's this thing that all of a sudden now there's 50,000 demons of the same type just going around doing this. Like that seems weird. This demon at any point could have possessed someone and then run out into the middle of New York City and killed themselves and would have been seen by a few hundred people. I don't see how that changes anything for like who the demon jumps to. Like it's just going to jump to the next person that's closest with the most trauma in their life. That's how I saw it. Like I just I don't buy that it's going to just now jump to 50,000 people, because like you're talking about the end of the world inside of a month, and that's okay. Like for it to end like this, but it just felt like
for a second film.
For a second film, like you're really pigeonholing yourself.
If you make a
third one, like
what are you
just going to ignore all that, or like the next person who's possessed? That movie starts with like everyone running and screaming out of that venue, and like it's now on one of those people.
Right.
That's kind of where
either
I
way
imagine it going.
It's going to be a cop-out either way, you know what I mean?
And I guess, they can just like keep doing this over and over and over again. But like, I would like to see some variation. Like
this one, even though the scope was a little bit bigger, it still kind of just felt like more of the same of the first one. And I feel like if you followed the cop character, the Kyle Gallner character,
that would have been a more interesting. It would have been a more interesting film.
Maybe it wouldn't have been as strong as the first one. I don't know, but it would have just been different.
But in terms of like performances, Naomi Scott, like,
oh, she's great.
She's a triple threat. Like she can act, she can sing, and she can dance.
Yeah, she was really, really good.
She's a good performer.
Yeah, it does kind of get a little tiring after a while because the whole movie she's just manic and like
of course,
fucking
it's kind of like
edge.
in the first one where like she gets the curse on her so fast in the opening of the film that you never get to see what she's like before.
Yeah, you get the sense that she's kind of a dull character, and then she gets the curse, the saucy bacon in the first one.
And then she's just a manic dull character.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
And then like everyone else in the film is fine, but there was an addition to this film. She's got a very small role. Jack Nicholson's son.
Oh right,
is in the film as her boyfriend that dies.
That dies, yeah.
And there's a scene where
of course they put him in the film because of that smile. He's got his dad's smile.
He's got that $1 million smile. There's a scene where she's at this dinner, like a charity event, and she's up on stage giving this speech.
She's supposed to be reading from a teleprompter, and then the teleprompter fails, and she Kamala Harris's malfunctions.
Yeah, she Harrises for like 5 minutes. Has a little hallucination, and then her boyfriend's name pops up on the teleprompter, and she has a freak out moment. And all of a sudden, you see him, he's sitting there, and he stands up like a dandy, and he's got this stupid grin on his face. Now, the grin, we were laughing our asses off. The grin is creepy, but his body language...
Yeah, he was creepy, but like in a gay way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you're trying to reconcile the two, like, but he does have that perfect smile.
Stop smiling at me!
All right, let's rank it. What are you thinking on this one?
Doing Kyle Gallner dirty really bothered me, and the fucking with time
and
hallucinations was super annoying.
Yeah.
The style of the film was very well executed, and I think that the director is actually very good. The film does feel like a progression from the first one stylistically. So I appreciated that. A lot of those like aerial shots that go upside down.
Yeah, I like those shots, man.
Oh, they're great.
You feel like you're up there.
Yeah, it kind of makes your stomach kind of drop a bit.
Very well done.
Yeah. So the guy's good, and I like seeing talented filmmakers, movies from talented filmmakers. So that's cool. But I think I'm gonna end up giving it a 5.5.
Wow. You went lower than I thought.
It was between 5.5 and 6.
Holy shit. Okay. We got a little divide here. I went 6.5.
All right, that's one whole point, but
yeah, it's 1 point. It's not like that big a divide, but like you said, like you're with it for like the first half. Like it's good. The third act, it's just like a less good version of what they did in the first film, but I still was like there were a lot of good like scary,
when it was good,
moments.
It was good.
Yeah.
That's what's so frustrating about it.
Yeah, because the filmmaking is solid. Parker Finn, I'd like to see him direct something outside of this franchise.
Yeah, same.
You know, beyond just Smile films, because I think he's very talented.
Right, like I'm annoyed at this movie, but at the same time, I wish nothing but great things for him. Because I think he is good.
Yeah. I'm glad it exists.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know that we needed this particular sequel, but I'm glad it exists because it's an original idea.
Yeah.
And he's moving forward with the
carrying
franchise that he
it through.
created.
Yeah, they didn't hand it off to someone else.
Exactly, and I like that.
In terms of the rainbow scale,
dude, very, very little.
yes, is there like the gay assistant, whatever?
Yeah,
but
but, like,
she's in that world though, so of course that's
just
realistic that kind
right.
of person.
And
would,
they don't do anything with that character that I would say like pushes anything.
not only that, it doesn't push anything, but he doesn't end up being this like super competent character.
No, he's
and,
just an assistant.
He's just exactly.
Yeah.
And like he's kind of a pussy about some things, you know.
Yeah.
And it was just realistic.
She treats him like shit, and
Right.
he like doesn't deserve it. Like he's not a bad character. He's a good guy.
That's the problem with like most of this woke stuff is that it's just unrealistic. It's bullshit. But yeah, that character.
He's just a normal person.
He's
who's
just normal.
like,
Yeah, exactly.
He's an assistant to like a pop star.
So,
And he acts like an assistant to a pop star.
Right, that is like just the fact that he's gay, you got to bring it up. You know what I mean? Because they usually just throw that stuff in movies.
Right, but they don't bring it up. It's just apparent because of how he presents himself.
Exactly.
You know,
and Darius is just like,
that was the only moment where you're like, he's like, don't touch me. Like, it was funny. But yeah, no, for this, like, I don't know. I can't really think of anything else.
I don't even think that's anything. Like
that itself is nothing. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I might go 0.
I think so. Yeah, there really
Like,
wasn't
there's
any.
nothing. There's nothing in this.
No.
So yeah, that's fine. Now, quickly, I want to take this opportunity to revisit the first film where we had kind of just started the channel.
It was our second review, I believe.
Second or third.
No, Barbarian,
I think Barbarian was our
second
second
one.
yeah. I think because we gave Halloween Ends such a low score, like for our very first review, we went 2 out of 10 on that. Like, I think, personally, as much as I liked the first Smile, I would like to take this opportunity to slightly revise my score from...
Okay, what was your score originally?
I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
And I think, with a little hindsight,
Right.
I think since we've been doing this a lot longer now, and I'm...
the snooty critic has like gone up your ass a little bit.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
I feel like I need to revise my score down just a touch.
Yeah.
So I'd like to revise it down to a 7.5.
Okay, yeah. that's fair.
Yeah, not a lot. Not a lot.
What did I give it?
You gave it a 7, I think.
Oh, I would stay with that. That sounds about right.
Yeah. I think you were a little more in tune with the rating system at the time. I was still getting used to it. But an 8's a very high score.
That is, yeah.
For us, anyway.
That's too high for that particular film.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
So
it's a good movie, but
I'm revising it down because I was so like blown away by that third act.
it is good.
Yeah.
It is good. It still is effective.
7.5, I think that's fair. And I gave this one a 6.5. I think that is also fair. Do we recommend it? Absolutely.
Even though I might have appeared to have given it a lower score, 5.5, I still do recommend seeing it. Like it still is an effective movie. It's just prepare to be frustrated. Very good filmmaking on display, and it's entertaining, and there's some good scares. So
check it out.